Hello everyone. First of all, I am so sorry that the other video didn't have sound, and I want to ask and encourage everybody to please let me know if something doesn't work right, if something doesn't have sound. If it doesn't seem right, it's probably not, so please let me know, and I really appreciate those who did, and for those who chimed into the Pronto thread to verify that we didn't have sound. So, let's try this again. Okay, so we are kicking off this second week with some things to get us situated for the first unit and the first paper that we're going to work on. Our first paper is going to be a primary source argument over a single article. So we're just going to read one thing, and our paper is going to be in reference to that one article. There's not going to be any outside research or anything. It's going to be much easier and much more straightforward for us to focus on building an argument in reference to one text before we move on to a research paper and work with several texts. Okay, so in order to do that, what I'm going to have us do is to read the article and process it. And the article is called We're Already in the Metaverse, and it's by Megan Garber, who is an author and journalist, and this was published in The Atlantic, which is a really famous, well-known kind of general audience magazine. It's very accessible, and it's a high interest article on the subject of entertainment and the impact that is having, this kind of always on pervasive entertainment. And she argues how it kind of has a tendency to blur the lines between fact and fiction, and she's got some very particular views on that. So the idea is that we're going to read this and we're going to use a social annotation tool called Hypothesis, and it's this one right here that has a little red speech bubble on it, and it's basically a social annotations tool. Normally when we read an article for ourselves, just to kind of prepare or process it, we might print that out and have a pen in our hand, and we might underline and circle and write things in the margins and write notes to ourselves and things like that. And that's kind of what we do to start the conversation between ourselves and the ideas in the text, and try to wrap our head around what it's about, what the claims are, and what we think about it, and so on. Well, this is a social annotation tool that can be used for individual annotations, or it can be used for social annotations. Now, a lot of the times in an online class, I put us in groups where you're not only talking with and about the text for yourself, but you're also, communicating and kind of having a discussion with your classmates about the text as well. But for this first assignment, I'm going to have us do this individually. So everybody's going to be in a group of one, if you will. So you're going to be annotating the article by yourself, for yourself, and it's not to impress me or anything. I'm going to have, some guidelines of what to do and how to do it, but you're going to have a lot of free choice in terms of what you say, and it's just going to be very natural, very informal. This is nothing fancy here. Now, before I click into the assignment, I need to point out some important things about this tool. Number one is that there's no place inside of it. If you click into it, you'd have no idea what to do, because there's no place for me to put any instructions for what to do or how many annotations to make and that sort of thing. So anytime we have a hypothesis assignment, the instructions for that are always going to be outside of the link. Now, if it's something where I can just put the instructions in a single PDF, then I usually put it right above the link, because that's kind of convenient. Read the instructions right there and then do the assignment. If I feel it needs a little bit more context and explanation, I'll actually create a little mini lesson for that, and I'll put that in our weekly folder, that assignment, so if we're doing it in week 5, then it would be in the week 5 folder, whatnot, but we're in week 2 right now. So if that were the case here, it would be in week 2. Our normal workflow for each week is that you click into the folder first for the week and, kind of see what lessons are there and start going through those. It's important to go through the lessons before you do the assignments. But in this case, this is kind of an exception to the rule. I want us to look at the article that we're dealing with before I release any lessons, before I give the assignment sheet for the essay. And before we get any further, I also want to clarify that and you probably remember this from the welcome video, but the course is divided into 3 units, and so each of our papers is roughly 5 weeks each. There's a little bit of deviation for that, and that, I think our research paper is 6 weeks and our last paper is 4, and so on. So it's a little bit of deviation, but roughly a month or a little more than a month for each paper. So for these, I'm never going to assign something and, oh, it's due that same week. So even when I introduce the assignment sheet for this, always look at the syllabus to kind of see, oh, okay, this isn't due for a couple more weeks or whatnot, so that you don't cause yourself any stress about that. So the instructions are up here, and I'm going to go ahead and click in these. I actually have them open already up at the top, but you click in here. I'm going to go ahead and click because I do want to show you a couple of things. The instructions are here, and you can read them in line. I'm going to go over a few things here, but I want to point out that I usually have examples of different kinds of posts and stuff, just so you kind of have a model to follow. But if you look at it on screen and on this computer, this part looks illegible. It's not if you download it. On my other computer, I can read this on my screen fine, but on this second computer that I have, this is not coming out very well. So if this is the case on your computer, then go over here to this little icon on the right and click on the download button, which I've already done. And I'm going to open the instructions right here. Now, I'm not going to read these to you. I know you can read them to yourself, but I just want to go over a few things just to clarify. There's an overview at the top kind of telling you what the article's about, the rationale for this assignment, and so on. And there's a note about not using AI, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute. There's instructions. There are tag types, and these are the different kinds of annotations or comments that you can make on these annotation assignments. And they are different per assignment. A lot of these tags you'll see on other kinds of assignments, but depending on what we're doing, some of the future assignments may have slightly different objectives, and so we may have some different tag types on those. So it's always important to read the PDF instructions, because it's going to tell you things like, oh, what are the tag types? What are the minimum requirements? And for this one, for this article, you're going to have to make 2 to 3 annotations per page, skewing toward 3. And you can always do more rather than less, but this is just kind of something to keep us all honest and to kind of make sure that we're going through most of the main claims in the article. Again, the purpose of us reading this is not just to do an assignment, but it's to process it, figure out what Megan Garber is arguing, what her thesis is, what her main claims are, looking at the examples and arguments that she builds, and figuring out where you stand and what you think in relation to that. And that's going to be important when we start talking about our paper. When we scroll further down through the instructions, you're going to see different tag types and example annotations. Do be aware that these examples are not based on this particular article. They're based on another assignment, but they're examples for the kinds of things that you can do. And hopefully they also illustrate that they're just written in plain, normal, regular, like we're having a conversation in class. This is nothing fancy. I want to hear everybody's natural, normal voice. Don't elevate it. Don't try to sound lofty or overly academic. This is just, let's just keep it real and keep it simple. Now, on some assignments in the future, a lot of times I'll stipulate, you need to have X amount of certain kinds of annotations, but this one is all free choice. So, but I'm still going to ask you to label them and to make sure that you have a variety of tag types. For example, don't just do all reflections or all questions or whatnot. I mean, you want to kind of get at the core of what's going on here. And when you're annotating this one, I don't even really want you to worry while you're annotating what you're doing. You can go back and kind of label those later and kind of get in the habit of doing that. If we go back up here to the top, we'll see what the objectives are. So we do want to be able to identify her thesis, main claims, and arguments. And this is not a quiz or something for you to do, but later if you're going to write a paper on, it has to be framed around this argument, you have to know what her thesis is. What is she arguing? What are her main claims? Those are her topic sentences, if you will. And if they're not stated, they're implied. What are her arguments and how do you feel about that? Once you read through it once, I think you're going to have a sense of what it is she's arguing, and you'll have maybe a sense of where you stand, in terms of the level to which you agree or disagree with her, or maybe you agree with some things but disagree with others. But you have to have an opinion and kind of formulate that as you read. Our goals are to analyze what's there, evaluate, weigh in. You're basically responding and reacting to what's there. You're kind of having a conversation with Megan Garber about the things that are in the text, and it's kind of like a conversation with yourself too, because you are trying to process and figure out what you think in relation to that. The act of annotating helps you do that. It helps you figure out not only what something is about, but it also helps you figure out what you think and where you stand. So the idea is that you're going to read the article and annotate it as you go, and I'm going to walk you through this here in just a minute, but once you make your annotation here in the box, you're going to come here and post it so that you and I both can see it. Again, this is an individual annotation assignment, so the only people that are going to be able to see this are you and me. This is not a social one where you're going to be in a group. All right, so let me bounce back over here to our class. I'm going to close this, or this actually isn't our class. This is a previous class because I have annotations that I can already show you. So when you click into this the first time, you'll probably see a pop-up that says authorize, and you have to click that to authorize that. And so let me go ahead and click into this. It's just going to open up another tab with it. And here's what it looks like. And you notice that over here in the top right hand corner, I usually have a silly GIF of some kind with a note that says, hey, please read the instructions so you know what to do and how many posts to have, and see examples of what we're aiming for. Now, initially right now my plan was for us to have this done Wednesday of this week. Since I goofed on the video, if I need to move this to Thursday, I will. So we'll see on that, because I did goof there. So if you look at this, you see some of the possibilities of what you can do. You can post multimedia here. You can post videos, you can post images, you can post GIFs and memes, if they were relevant. And depending on what it is, it is good to do those things. Sometimes even for yourself. If you're like me, sometimes when you read something interesting, or something that you either don't understand or that you want to learn something more about, and so you end up going down some rabbit hole and you read something, you're like, wow, this is really interesting, and it kind of opens your eyes on something, and you kind of want to hang on to that. Or if you're in a group or in a class, often you want to share those things with others. If that happens, you can come in and you can share those things, and I'm going to show you how to do that once I show you how to make a post. So I'm in a previous class here, and I'm just going to choose a random one here, and notice that it's written just in normal, we're not trying to impress anybody. It's a conversation. So imagine this is kind of like a conversation that we might have in class. In this case, you're having that conversation sort of alone with the text, first of all, to figure out, what you think about it. So if I look at this right here and I see the more, I can click on that. This is what this student annotated, and if I click on it, it's going to take me to that part in the text. So this is the part that he annotated, and so when I click on that, it's just going to isolate this. And so this is the thing that he's responding and reacting to it. And notice that he's just using regular normal language, where he says, I agree with this part when it says that we will not know how to govern or be governed, and that this future has already arrived. And so you can kind of see that it's just natural and normal, nothing fancy, but we do want to think critically and engage with the text, respond and react as we go. In terms of the how-to, I'm going to choose something random here. Obviously, when you're annotating, don't choose something random to annotate. Choose something that speaks to you. Choose something that you have an opinion about, something that you know engages you in some way. Maybe it's something you disagree with, something you agree with, something that makes you think of something else. So I'm gonna just do one sentence right here. So you just select with your, I'm on a laptop, so I'm, just using my touchpad to select that one sentence that I want to annotate. And then I'm going to click the annotate button, and notice that it opens up the little text editor. And so here is where you type your annotation in the box, and it has a fair amount of space there. Notice you've got some little tools up here that you can do different things with. For example, if I want to bold something, which I often do to make something stand out or easier to read, then you're going to click on that. And it doesn't look like it's bold, but it will. And so let's say if this were a reflection, I'm going to put my tag type there, and then I'm going to post where it says my name. And then it's there, but I think because I clicked on this, I think it like disappeared there on me. But it did post. Let me pause and find that. Here we go. It just got buried in the mix there. So notice here I've got the where it went bold. If I need to edit something, I'm going to click on the pencil, and I can go back in and add. If I wanted to add an image or a GIF or something, then I would go put the cursor where I want it, and then I would click on the little picture icon, and notice that it just gives you a place where you could do that. What you want to do is you'll right click on the image and get the copy image address or copy image URL, and then that's where you'd paste it. If you were posting a GIF or a meme or something, then you'd go to Jiffy and click on the share link, and then that's where you would put it, and then when you post it, it shows up. I'm also going to show you what you would do if you ever wanted to post a video there. And again, for this particular assignment, none of that's required, but if you did go down a rabbit hole and you found something, an article or something, you can include that like a web article by using the link and pasting the link for that there. But for videos, you're just going to find the video itself, but it has to be the YouTube version. And so I'm going to choose this one right here, and I need to stop that before it plays and find the share link, which I don't see here. Let me see. Let me open it here and find the share link. And I would click copy and come back to the post, and then I'm just going to paste the URL right there, and then I might put like what it is, TED Ed and I might put a version of the title or the topic. It's useful not just if you're adding something extra, but whatever you're talking about. It's useful for you, and it's useful for others if it's a social annotation, if you put descriptors on there too. You're required to put the ones that I have on the PDF instructions, like reflection or CC for a claim or question for a question, that kind of thing. That helps me on the grading, because on a lot of these assignments I do specify that, hey, you need 3 questions and 2 replies, and there's a breakdown like that. And so if I don't have the tags, it makes it really hard for me to grade, and I don't have time to sit and figure it out. So I really need those, but it's also good to have the descriptions as well. So if I click this, then notice it posts this here. A couple of great things when you post something that's either visual or a relevant, something that's a video or a an article is that, especially in the case of an image or a video, is it adds a bit of visual flair or pop to your annotation. When you're in a group situation, that's really good because it kind of draws the attention of the group to your post and makes it maybe more likely that you'll get some traction on whatever it is that you have. Now, the point of this is not to do it just to do it and have short cursory comments. It's also not about being excessively wordy either, but it's about being authentic and genuine and remembering that at the end of the day, you're doing this annotation for yourself. Yes, I'm taking it for a grade to kind of reward slash force everybody to read the article and read it carefully, but it's ultimately to your benefit because you're going to end up reading this article multiple times by the time we get to the end of this unit because our first paper is based on it. So if you keep that in mind that you're doing this for you, I think you'll really do this in the right spirit. And so that's how you post. If we remember from the instructions, you need at least 2 to 3 annotations per page, but you never have to just stick to that. If you might have 4 or 5 annotations on one page, you might have 2 on another. It should average 2 per page. And there are some pages where there are images, so there's a little bit less text there. So on some of those, maybe those are some of the ones where you have 2 annotations instead of 3. But on average. So the article's not quite as long as it seems, but it's, I don't know, it's probably like 7 or 8 pages if memory serves. There are some pages like this one where it's all, like the cover is all image, and then there's one other page where it's all image. So I think it's probably about 7 or 8 pages, something like that altogether if you don't count the images that are, like the cover and so on. So it is something you're going to want to read carefully. You're going to want to sort through and not only comment on the minutia, but also see if you can identify what the main claims are. She's only got a handful of main claims, but she develops them very well throughout. And in the first part of the essay or article, she does have a really effective introduction, and she makes the thesis pretty clear toward the end of that. So that's what we're aiming for. I want to bounce back into the instructions one more time, and I highly recommend again that you download them to your computer. Don't try to read them on the screen because maybe your computer is like mine here, where when you get to the examples, I couldn't see it very clearly on the other one, but if I make this bigger, you can see examples of a claim comment. This is one where you might be making a claim about something, maybe it's a comment, so the CC tag covers either one of those. And again, remember these examples that you see here are based on a different article. For my other classes, they annotated this article that these examples are from last week because they were until this week a week ahead of y'all. But since I threw that assignment out for this mini-mester, now y'all are caught up with the other classes and we're all on the same page and the same schedule. This is an example if you ever had a video or you're bringing something in. Notice how, and if you do ever bring something in, especially if it's for a group, you obviously want to make sure it's kind of on the short side, otherwise people are less likely to watch it. I think this one was pretty short. It was less than 5 minutes, I think. So if you're doing it for yourself, it doesn't really matter. If you're saving that for your reference later, then that's fine. But again, you're not required to go outside of the article itself for this hypothesis assignment. I'm saying just if you did, and this is just kind of in general. You would need to set it up and explain what it's about. And then I always like to, when it's a group thing, ask a question to the group, even on tags where, that's not my main focus. A connection is when you're making connections to other issues or ideas, or you're making a connection from one thing in one part of the text to something else in another part of the text, or something that you already know about, or some other something that you can connect what you're reading about to something else. And when I do it, I like to do this. I mean, I put the tag right here, connection, and but I also like to put it right there just so I can make it clear for others. It's less of a concern when you're doing it by yourself. You don't have to do any lateral reading for this particular assignment, but that's when you go outside of the article and you find something that's relevant to a given point. I have an example of that here, but again, that won't really apply unless you decide to go down a rabbit hole and you decide to go get find an article that you think is worth kind of keeping hold of. Reflections are always nice to have a few of these. This is when you're sharing your own thoughts, feelings, or reactions about whatever it is that you've read. And so these are the annotation types that we have for the first assignment. You'll also want to try to do these things even though I don't have formal annotation types for them, but challenge yourself to identify what her thesis is, and if you can't find it, or if you don't really think it's pinned down in specific hey, this is the thesis, then see if you can put it in your own words so that you can wrap your head around it, and as you go through, see if you can identify her main claims, but then weigh in on those. What we also don't want to do is we don't want to just explain what a paragraph means. So none of this is explanatory, and none of this is summarizing. So we really don't want to see things that say, oh, this paragraph is about this, or this highlights this, or this means that. It should be you responding and reacting and thinking about the things that are there. The last thing I want to say here is I don't expect to see any AI use on the annotations, and for the most part I don't, even in my online classes, which I really, really appreciate. It's really obvious, and they're written in a way, even though AI is getting a lot better now and some of the platforms can write more naturally even without people trying to wrangle them to do that. But we really don't want to do that because the whole point of this assignment is to figure out what you think and to hear your thoughts and to hear your voice, and you can't get any of that from AI. So I really don't want to see anything that sounds like it's an encyclopedia entry. It's really obvious when you see natural annotations, and then you see annotations that are either AI generated in totality or heavily AI influenced, where somebody's used AI to get something and it's kind of part that and part the student, and it's weird and unnatural, and that kind of writing will not be rewarded. And and if I do suspect that kind of thing, I ask for a meeting to clarify those things. So let's please not do that. Let's just have some fun with this. Hopefully that it's entertaining. And I'd also like to point out that despite the fact, I almost forgot to say this, the article is called "We're Already in the Metaverse," and you're going to see Garber used that term a few times, but I want to point out, and I want you to remember, that the article is not about the metaverse. We really don't live in a metaverse right now, kind of where our day-to-day life is kind of blurred with online digital experience. It's not. She uses an analogy of all these dystopian novels, some of which you may be familiar with. She makes a comparison that's basically saying, well, we practically do, because she says that we're so hooked into this always on kind of entertainment, whether it's Netflix, social media. We've always got our faces buried in a screen. And she's got some arguments about some of what she sees are the negative impacts about that. So the subject of the article and of her argument is really entertainment. So when you're talking about things, let's not keep harping on the word metaverse. Let's use the word entertainment, because that's more accurately depicts what that's about. So I hope I haven't forgotten anything here. I'm going to render this in YouTube, get it back in the course, and hopefully back in a video quiz so I can make sure that everybody watches it. And I'll make sure the sound works on this one. I appreciate your patience on this, and that's a wrap so that I can get this out to you. I'll talk to you soon.